The Great Mississippi Flood of 1993, Calamities Lesson 18. Most calamities are fast-striking affairs. They kill quickly and then they are done. Tornadoes, explosions, fires, and plane crashes are usually over in a matter of minutes, if not seconds. The Great Flood of 93 was different. It began slowly, building up its destructive potential, and lasted for several months. As one man said, "The Mississippi River is relentless. It doesn't hit you hard and fast. It keeps coming and coming. Hurricanes are devastating, but at least they're over with quickly," said Ronald Vann at the Federal Emergency Management Agency. "This is cruel. It just sits around." To the people of the Midwest, floods are a fact of life. Midwesterners accept floods the same way they accept blizzards. They know sooner or later these disasters are going to happen. Every year, spring rains and melting snow swell the Mississippi, as well as the many rivers and streams that flow into it. Sometimes the rivers overflow their banks or break through the dams or levees, flooding the surrounding area. Sometimes the flooding is truly disastrous. That was the case in 1937, 65, and 73. The Great Flood of 1993 was something else again. It was, as many people said, the mother of all floods. The causes for the Great Flood of 93 can be traced back to the previous fall. Unusually heavy rains hit the Midwest, saturating the soil. The land never had a chance to dry out before the winter cold froze the ground and the snows came. That by itself would have been enough to cause some minor flooding in many places the following year. In the spring of 93, the Midwest got hit with a series of very heavy downpours. Ordinarily, this part of the country doesn't get a lot of rain in the spring. Unusual weather patterns, however, brought record amounts of rainfall to the region. In early March, the National Weather Service was not predicting any major flooding in the Midwest. It warned things could worsen if more heavy rains came. By April 1, after weeks of steady rain and melting snow, the situation had become grim. The Weather Service then predicted that sections of Iowa could expect moderate to severe flooding. That was a classic understatement. By May 10, Mother's Day, many parts of the Midwest were underwater. Mother's Day was not all spring flowers, cake, and sunshine, wrote Tom M. of the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. It was a Sunday of floodwaters, mud, washed-out roads, cleanup, and worry. There was ample reason to worry. The Great Flood of 93 was just getting warmed up. By early June, the floods had arrived in earnest. Warm, moist air feeding up from the Gulf of Mexico collided with cool, dry air from Canada. That combination produced severe thunderstorms and torrential rains throughout the region. Several inches of rain fell in many places. For example, New London, Iowa got an unbelievable 6.5 inches of rain in 15 minutes. All that water had no place to go but the local streams and rivers. By June 30th, the Mississippi River, which drains the entire Midwest, had reached all-time crests at Burlington, Iowa, and Keithburg, Illinois. The flooding was so bad, barge traffic was closed from St. Louis, Missouri north to St. Paul, Minnesota. That is like watching a disaster movie like The Towering Inferno, said Emmett Hahn, an official at the Emergency Operations Center in St. Louis. You leave the movie thinking, that was exciting. It would never happen in real life. You couldn't have all those events at one time. But that's what happened. In July, the Great Flood of 93 turned really nasty. Again, just when people thought it couldn't get worse, it did. Heavy downpours continued to soak the Midwest as a stalled high-pressure system off the East Coast kept pumping warm tropical air into the upper Mississippi Valley. Nearly all the levees between Hannibal, Missouri, and St. Louis broke, inundating the countryside. 8 inches of rain fell on Kansas City, Missouri. That downpour produced 7 feet of water in some parts of the city. By mid-July, the death toll from the flood reached 20. The crops on millions of acres of prime farmland were underwater. Thousands of Midwesterners were left homeless or without potable water or electricity. At the same time, the courageous people of the Midwest did their best to hold back the waters. Day after day, night after night, they piled sandbag on top of sandbag in an often hopeless attempt to save their families and homes. Inmates from jails joined in the fight to hold off the water, winning the deep thanks of many residents. Alan Church, a convicted burglar, said after a day of sandbagging, "That's the best thing I ever did. Those people were really happy to have me around." It's hard to imagine just how heartbreaking a flood like this can be unless you have lived through one. The images provided by news photographs can help. Friends comforting those who have lost their homes, parents holding priceless photo albums over their heads, people rowing boats down streets to rescue neighbors stuck on rooftops. No photograph can convey the noxious smell of the mud. Pam Christian of Iowa said, "It smelled so bad I was choking." The Great Flood of 93 had its share of heroes. One was Bob Scott, 48-year-old truck driver. He worked with more than 300 volunteers in a futile effort to keep open the Bayview Bridge near Quincy, Illinois. When the protecting levee gave way, the river submerged the town under 20 feet of water. Mississippi also swept away cars lying in its path. Scott saved one woman by pulling her off her car's roof. He grabbed a man who was hanging halfway out the driver's window of his car. By the end of July, nearly 3/4 of more than 1,300 levees had been breached. The federal government declared 9 Midwestern states disaster areas. The flood crested at Cairo, Illinois in early August. Fortunately, the Mississippi River at this point widens and deepens, allowing it to flow south without causing further mayhem. The death and destruction between St. Paul in the north and Cairo in the south was impressive enough. The Great Flood of 93 lasted more than 3 months. The official death toll stood at 50. The merciless flood left more than 70,000 people homeless, more than 20 million areas of farmland underwater. Officials estimated the total damage at $12 billion. Those totals put the disaster in second place behind the $17 billion Hurricane Andrew as the most costly natural calamity in American history.